We will be recording this training. So if you accept that, great. If you're uncomfortable, you can log off now. But hi, and welcome to part 2 of Advancing Prenatal Through 3 Conversations. Today's workshop really builds on part 1, which you experienced through the video modules. We're going to be doing a lot of great work today, including breakouts. I always like to say, don't run away from the breakouts. They're awesome. They're short, they're engaging. So stay with us through that and you'll get a lot out of today's training. I'm Allison Frazier. I'm joining you today from Massachusetts in the land of the Wampanoag people. I encourage you to learn more about the original stewards of the land where you live. I'm a National Senior Director at Voices for Healthy Kids, which is an initiative of the American Heart Association, where I work on communications and campaign planning. Voices for Healthy Kids works to advance equitable policies that make the places babies, toddlers, kids, and families live, learn, and play healthier. Joshua.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joshua Harris, and I'm joining you from Baltimore, which sits on the land of the Piscataway and Susquehannock people. And I am Senior Manager of Marketing and Communications for Voices for Healthy Kids. And I'm excited as we continue to do this work to figure out how we can meet in the middle. Jennifer.
Thanks, Joshua. Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Messenger with Metropolitan Group. We're a social change firm working with Voices for Healthy Kids on messaging and movement building. I'm in Portland, Oregon, which rests on unceded traditional village sites of many indigenous peoples who made their homes along the Columbia River, including the Clackamas and Molalla tribes.
Hi, everyone. I am Deborah Clark. I am also with Metropolitan Group. I am on the East Coast in the Washington, D.C. office, which sits on the ancestral lands of the Anacostans and the neighboring Piscataway and Pamunkey peoples. You'll also meet Anasuya Starbear, our non-polarizing communication specialist in Module 7. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us live today, but will join us virtually a bit later. And I'll pass it back to Allison.
I'll get this mute button thing down. Great. Today we'll begin with a brief recap and discussion of content from the modules in the online guide. Then we'll spend most of our time together workshopping the messages and tools so you'll feel more ready to use them in your work. If you've been using your workbook for notes and questions as you've watched the modules, please grab it. If you haven't started the workbook yet, please download it now so you have it for the workshops. And the link is in the chat. And you'll also see the link to the guide if you'd like to have that handy as well. And I'm going to turn it back over to Deb.
Thank you, Allison. So we're going to dive in to the session. We're going to start with a recap, question, and discussions. So you've had time with the video modules, 8 videos totaling about 70 minutes and the online guide. And we also understand the reality of time and schedules, and we know you may not have gotten all the way through or remember everything. I'm usually in the latter group of not remembering everything. So what we're going to do is start with a quick recap as either a refresher or new information if you haven't had time. Just know you can always use the modules as needed. So I want to start with the archetypes. So this research and resource focuses specifically on conversations with decision makers in conservative states where advocates were feeling the most opposition to PN-3 policies. Eventually, we hope to expand the research to strengthen conversations with all decision makers. Our first goal was to more deeply understand the group of decision makers and especially the values and needs that inform their policy work. Because there is no one conservative decision maker, we developed and built out 4 archetypes, which are typical examples of a person or group. Those archetypes enabled us to explore more specific ways of approaching PN-3 policy. We developed the archetypes using existing research, input from people holding both conservative and progressive viewpoints, and with advocates working on PN-3 issues in conservative states and interviews with elected officials. The archetypes we defined are church and country, economic influence, legacy Republican, and populist aligned. Before I share details, I do want to reinforce what our commitment here is, and it is to do this work without stereotypes and judgment. Instead, we focus on understanding the feelings, needs, and core values within each archetype to help you advance a productive debate. So as I said before, an archetype is a very typical example of a certain person or thing. On the contrary, the definition of a stereotype is a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. Where stereotypes can reduce people to a simplistic idea in order to shut down curiosity and openness, archetypes give us examples of people who may hold similar views and values in order to increase understanding. You can use the archetypes as part of your analysis of decision makers, helping you and your coalition determine who you will meet with, who the right people are to attend each meeting, what information you'll share, and of course, adding your own homework and specifics is vital. And then I'll let Jen go into the details of each archetype.
Thanks, Deb. I'll briefly introduce you to these archetypes, and then you'll find a lot more detail in the online guide. So the church and country archetype is a group of folks who are loyal to chosen leaders, whether that's other electeds who they serve with, other people in the community, people in their faith congregations. They're deeply influenced by a conservative interpretation of Christian values and a moral approach. So one way to think about that is they're called by their faith to help others. So this is a group that will often see themselves as a protector of constituents or community. So this is where you might find people who do food drives, clothing drives, connect people to healthcare, for example. This group tends to believe that churches and communities already have sufficient resources to help people. So they may push back on public policy, public funding, thinking, oh, we've got organizations in the community that already provide everything people need. They also take pride in position earned in their own, and also expecting that others should work hard for what they desire in life. We did see in our research sympathy for people living in poverty, especially in rural areas. So there is some recognition that working hard is harder for some people because of the circumstances where they live. The values that drive this group are faith, authority, tradition, control, and care. So that's the church and country archetype. Oops. Economic influenced archetype. This group prioritizes the economy and business strength and favors limited government. They tend to be pretty passionate about discussing the details of policy, especially the data and numbers supporting it, so they fully understand costs, benefits, and return on investment. So these are the folks who you're getting into conversations with about spend now, save later. What does it cost? What's the short-term versus long-term implications? You need to be ready with those numbers when you go in. This group also favors limited government, believing that the public sector alone is inefficient and ineffective for solving problems. The values that drive them tend to be freedom, individual choice, and control. And I'll note that the family unit and the freedom of that family unit to make decisions is really essential within this archetype. So it can be helpful when you're speaking with people in the economic influenced archetype to show how your proposed solutions remove barriers for families to maximize their own personal choices. The legacy Republican archetype is decision makers who are driven by traditional values, traditional Republican values, if you will, hard work and the American dream, for example. They value debate. They're really interested in other points of view. They're open to stepping out of party lines to understand and address an issue. They also tend to be very passionate about policy details. Folks who we talked to who helped us define this archetype, and then people who we would say would be in this archetype, tend to be what we sometimes think of as old school Republicans, right? Like people who are really going to lean in on traditional Republican values and debate policy. The values that drive them are diligence, care, service, and leadership. Laura, I'm looking at your note in the chat about the value of control. That's about often about individuals having control over their own decisions and circumstances. I think it probably comes into policymakers having control as well, but that's where that control, it really ties tightly to individual responsibility and autonomy. And the final archetype is populist aligned. These decision makers value individuals making efforts to advance themselves without outside help or government spending. They're led by constitutional ideals. They tend to value individual effort, and sometimes they hold resentment toward people who aren't perceived to rightfully be earning their benefits or what they're getting from public society. This group believes that society doesn't have an obligation to make things fair for everyone. The values that drive them are strong loyalty to America, their conception of America, diligence, and freedom. So even with this more detailed look at conservative decision makers, that's the idea here, right? We're breaking this monolith into smaller groups that we can start to understand at a bit of more nuanced level. But even with that, no one fits neatly into one or the other of these archetypes. You might be thinking, like, I'm a little bit this and a little bit that. Or I'm none of this, but the people I meet with are this and that, or my husband's this and my best friend is that. There's all kinds of mixing between these archetypes, right? So the guide also introduces ideas that hold true across the archetypes. Those include things like the strength of freedom as an overarching value. So you may have read a lot or experienced a lot, this individual freedom, individual responsibility, individualism that tends to be pretty pervasive in dominant American culture. That's really strong among this group, right? Freedom to make decisions, small government. This is where we hear arguments about nanny state and things like that. There's a very strong conviction across the archetypes that people have an individual responsibility to take care of themselves and their families, right? It's you work for what you get. In our interviews, a lot of decision makers did share that they often feel judged and villainized by people with progressive viewpoints, or sometimes feel like progressive advocates own children and family issues or feel like they own them, and can really discredit the fact that conservative decision makers also care about children and families and go about that in different ways. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is finding that shared value connection and where you do agree and can build from there. With many of these decision makers, we also learned, or probably confirmed, that it can be difficult to have a direct conversation about structural racism, or at least to start a conversation overtly there. I want to acknowledge to you that this probably doesn't come as a surprise. Our team and the Voices for Healthy Kids team and the National Collaborative on Infants and Toddlers and everybody involved with this call today is not letting up on this work. Building understanding and changing culture here is a long-term effort, and it's built incrementally through open listening and trust building. For those of you who are in settings where it's possible to more directly talk about racial equity and justice in policy, we have a racial equity and public policy resource that you can use. This guide also gives you what we call dials, or ways to get more specific within each archetype. So you can think of these as ways to turn up or turn down characteristics within an archetype based on things like a person's age, where they live, their life experiences. Are they a parent? So like one thing we learned was for younger decision makers, and we got such great insights from the Millennial Action Project and also from talking with younger elected officials. These are folks who have finished college, have entered their careers, are trying to start families with tremendous student debt, really high housing prices. So the economic concerns within that stripe of each archetype get ramped up, and they definitely are more engaged in conversations about how hard it is to be a working parent with kids in this environment. So understanding that is going to help you. And of course, you're going to have your own dials as you do your research on people you're talking to, right? You might know somebody and think, okay, if I think of them as in the church and country archetype, that helps me narrow in on where I might start or focus conversation. And also they live in a rural area, and so I know this about them. And also they do this job in addition to being an elected official, so that tells me this about them. So you can really customize based on there. That's our super brief overview of what you maybe learned in the modules, or can if you haven't watched those yet. And there's way more information about this on the online guide and the website. We're about to go into the workshop part of our session, which is the bulk of our time together today, where we'll explore how to navigate conversations about prenatal through 3 issues using messages that we tested and insights from these archetypes. But before that we go there, I want to pause and invite your questions, observations, and discussions on the archetypes or anything else that you are thinking about or learned in the modules. And you can feel free to come off mute, raise your hand, weigh in the chat, whatever feels comfortable to you. I'm super curious, if you don't mind. Oh, Thomas, I see. I'll come to you in just a second. And while Thomas is asking or sharing, would you just put your little thumbs up emoji up if you had a chance to dip your toe into the modules or the online website? And it's totally fine if not. It'll just be interesting for us to see how many people plugged in there. I see some thumbs coming up. Thank you. Thomas.
Yes, my question is about the workbook. I clicked on the link and I got a website from your group, but I don't see where I can download the workbook.
Allison or Monique?
It should be there, but I'll email one directly to you, Thomas, and I'll put another link in the chat box here.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Allison. Julie, I see your question. How do groups besides economic influenced feel about economic arguments? It's a great question. And I'm thinking about other research that I'm doing right now about the balance between facts and values in messaging. And what I'm learning in that work, or really confirming in that work, is that when you start really debating facts or statistics or data, you can easily get derailed in the conversation because people start arguing facts or arguing the source of the fact or looking for the perfect fact. So the first thing I would say is use those sparingly, have them at the ready in case you're being asked a lot of questions, but don't go in throwing facts around. Go in from this value space, which is what we're about to work on. The economics, we definitely heard most strongly in economic influenced and legacy. And as I mentioned, it came up in the younger decision maker conversations too. I don't recall it being such an issue within the church and country group. That was more conversations about government not shouldering all of the responsibility and all of the financing for programs, really looking to what community can bring. And I would say populist aligned when it comes to economics. If it costs money, they're out. Like there's a quote in the guide that's something like from a populist aligned decision maker. They say, there's three things I use when I evaluate a policy. Is it constitutional? There's some other one, and does it cost money? And it has to answer yes to the first two and no to the third one, which is does it cost money, before I'll even talk to you. The racial equity and public policy resource, Joshua just linked that to you. That's the last version of this longer term messaging project that we did. And what it looks at is how you can talk to decision makers about embedding racial equity provisions right in a policy. So sometimes a policy gets passed and the intention is that it will narrow equity gaps. And because of where power sits in communities, that policy might get pulled down, or benefits or resources get pulled down in places that have typically and historically received more benefits and resources. And so it actually drives an equity gap instead of narrowing it. So that guide that Joshua just linked to you is about how to talk to policymakers when you get to the final policy making, rulemaking stage, about putting in provisions that specify that policies will be implemented first where the need is greatest, starting in areas that are experiencing racial inequities and structural racism. Oh, does it grow government? Thank you, Laura. Is it constitutional? Does it grow government? And does it cost money? That's the populist litmus test that one decision maker told us. So it has to be yes to constitutional and no to does it cost money or grow government? It was like a pop quiz I didn't even intend to make. Okay, I think I got everything in the chat. Anything I missed or anything else coming up for you all? Okay, let's play. We're going to go over to the workshops. Deb.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. So moving into how the non-polarizing approach set up, if you were able to watch the modules, there was So our communication specialist, Anasuya Starbear, discusses this and uses this in a conversation that we will talk about later. So the guide includes PN-3 messages and strategies, which is the head part. You'll see here, head, heart, and gut. From there, it diverts a little from a standard message training. It also includes information on using your thoughts and feelings, your heart and gut, to guide this work and to care for yourself while doing it. We're wired to use 3 different types of perception altogether. And when we do, our inner compass gets activated and keeps us aligned with our values and purpose. When we don't activate our inner compass by checking in with our feelings, needs, and values, we can feel stuck and get hopeless or depressed. And this comes from the practice of non-polarizing communication, and it can feel new and even a little strange at first, but people we've workshopped with are telling us it is very helpful and resonates with the needs they have in the work. So what non-polarizing means is, rather than falling into the them versus us scenario, we speak and listen from a place of curiosity, because we want to understand where we can make a bridge between our core values and those of another person whose stance seems very different from ours. The guide outlines several ways you can practice staying open and curious and find common ground without surrendering what you hold most dear. You'll find more detail in video module 7, which I just mentioned, and in the online guide in the Understand Yourself and Hidden Feelings section. In module 7, Anasuya Starbear, the non-polarizing communication specialist who has worked with groups in conflict around the world, introduces this awareness shield that you all see right now. It shows the characteristics that keep you open to conversation and offer you self-care and self-protection. I encourage you to watch that module to learn how to build this shield. Anasuya also offers a supplemental module on role of trauma in this work as well. Even with the shield and all of the preparation we're giving you, there may be some conversations you just need to skip or walk away from. If you know me intimately, you know that self-preservation is a guiding principle. For me, I'm always going to choose self-preservation out of anything. So it is okay to walk away from things if it does not feel safe. With that said, the goal is to help you stay there as long as it feels safe. You'll hear us mention the word safe a few times throughout this training, because the operative word there is safe. The safety is the utmost importance here. So let's look at how you might use your insights about your own feelings to help you prepare. So we are about to go to breakout groups. As Allison said, don't run away. We hope they will be fun and interactive for you. I'm going to go into the instructions before we break out. So to dive into this a bit more, we're going to start with a small group breakout where we'll explore and acknowledge the feelings that arise during conversations with decision makers. We've created small groups. We're probably going to do about 5 people or so that you'll work with at a couple points today. Our intention is to create safe space for you to collaborate, share experiences and perspectives, experiment, make mistakes, and learn together. You'll see the prompts for this breakout on the slide. You'll also have a worksheet in your workbook that's labeled breakout number 1 on page 11. We did drop the workbook link in the chat, as well as the attachment if you don't have it up. And we're going to put it in the chat again if you don't have it open. So what's going to happen in the breakout groups is you're going to introduce yourself. Then you'll reflect on this quote that you see on the screen from a decision maker in our interviews that took place. In your group, please read the quote, which is also on the worksheet as well, to yourself, and notice how you feel when you imagine hearing someone say this to you. Refer to the feelings, need, and values list on the website. You'll find the link in the workbook and here in the chat as well. This might feel new or even unusual to you. Some people say it's like therapy. I am the people. It is a very effective way to be grounded in conversations. All feelings are valid and okay. You may feel supported. You may feel anxious. You may feel like, I don't know where anyone in this group sits in terms of values, beliefs, and ideology. And we want to encourage you not to make assumptions about your colleagues on this call. We do need all of you here. The point isn't to get rid of your feelings or to validate anyone else's feelings over yours. It's really about finding your own psychological safety and finding common ground despite any obstacles. And no matter where your values and stance are, you may feel challenged in policy discussions with people who oppose government intervention or have different ideas about how to care for children and families. The goal here is really to create conversations where everyone is supported, safe, and can be open, and where we can advance policy solutions. In your group, discuss the feelings that come up for you when you read the quote. If you get done and need another quote to play with, you'll find a link at the bottom of your worksheet to some additional quotes for our interviews. I would venture to say that you probably won't have time to play with another quote. And with that said, you'll have about 5 minutes in your group, then we'll come back. Please be mindful that your group might have 5 or more people. So be sure that just as much as you're talking, that you're ensuring that everyone that wants to share the feelings that come up, that you're creating the space that everyone is able to share. And since we are good in time, I got the go ahead that we'll actually have 10 minutes in these breakout groups. So I'll let us go into the breakout groups.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I don't know about you, but those breakout rooms always go too fast. And it's always nice just to have a little bit of time to get to know each other. So if you didn't get all the way through your exercise, we're going to keep working with that quote. But as I'm setting up the next exercise, I would love to hear what came up for you. And specifically, if you had a chance to read the quote and start talking about the feelings that came up. And as I was just saying to my group, a feeling is not, I feel like that person is wrong. A feeling is, I feel angry. Like, what is the feeling? So if you just want to chat some of the feelings that you were experiencing when you read that quote, no judgment about the feelings. Your feelings are your feelings. Positive, negative, those words don't really apply here. They're just feelings. So if anyone wants to get brave and share, thank you. Exasperated, misunderstood, frustrated, facepalm. I don't know what, that is a feeling. I don't have any other word for that. Thank you for sharing some of that. And again, the intention of this guide and this training is to support you to make space to acknowledge your feelings and to do the best you can to understand and find shared humanity across values, ideals, and differences of opinion. I'm going to set up part 2 of the breakout. We're going to work with the same quote, and this time I'll be guessing into how the person saying the quote would feel. I'm reflecting too on something that someone in my group shared, which was, as an advocate, I really try to put feelings aside and just do the work, because otherwise it's just too much. And I hear that. And if that's your strategy and you can stay healthy and whole and do your job and live your life and protect your well-being, awesome. Sometimes it is helpful to name those feelings and process them a little bit so that you're standing on more solid ground when you go into a conversation. It also fine-tunes your spider senses to read the other person's feelings and needs, which gives you an advantage in coming back with your argument or your discussion or your questions. Something we heard so much in the research is a lot of what you all are saying, we heard from conservative decision makers. I feel like nobody listens to me. I feel like people think that I'm a monster. I feel like people come in and start lecturing me. I would like to be asked how I'm doing. I would like to be met with. I know this work can be challenging. I know this work can be fun. I know you may have great relationships or may be one of the archetypes that we're talking about. And I know it might be challenging. So we're just asking you to play a little bit with thinking about feelings and whether it starts to feel helpful to you to tap those a little bit. Using the guide with family over the holidays, Allison, we've talked about that a lot. This is about finding common ground. Okay, so part 2 of the breakout. What we're going to do now is work with the same quote. Here, let me get my instruction sheet back up. And if you found yourself in the breakout saying, wait, what are we supposed to be doing? You might want to take a screenshot of this screen because then you'll have it when you get into your breakout. So this time we're going to work with the same quote, and I'll put it up again if you want to take a screenshot. Actually, let me just do that right now while I'm thinking about it. If you want to screenshot that quote, there it is. We'll work with that same quote, but this time instead of thinking about the feelings this brings up for you, you're going to guess into how the person saying this quote might feel. So again, here are the instructions for breakout 2. In one group, you're going to, in your group, ask one person to read that quote out loud and really listen to how it's landing with you and imagine what the person saying it might be feeling. And again, you can keep coming back to that needs, values, and feelings list, plus your own intuition. And I see Joshua copying that and about to drop it in the chat. Thanks, Joshua. Then you'll work as a group to translate that quote into a non-polarizing version. So in other words, if this person had spoken from a place of needs and values, what might they have said instead? And if you watched module 7, you saw Anasuya deftly translating blaming language into feelings words. So she took this quote, "Life is not fair, life is hard. I'm bound by my faith and my obligations to my fellow man, but I don't want the government dictating a redistribution of resources. That's the basis of Marxism. That does not work." So that came from our interviews. And you can think about which archetype you think that person might go into. I can look and see where we put them when we did our analysis. So honestly, you sat with that. She thought about what are the words that I'm seeing in there that are coming from a place of blame or judgment or fear? And how could I translate those into needs and feelings and values? And so she might say something back like, I'm hearing that you respect, that's a value, that people go through hard times, and you're a man of faith. That's a value. And you believe that offering support is the right thing to do. That's a conviction. But not by taking away anyone else's freedom. That's a value. So what this work does of nonviolent or non-polarizing communication is it's really work to get beneath what's being said to the driving values, needs, and feelings that that person has in conversation so that you can stop doing this and at least find a common ground. You might not reach agreement on a new policy. That might take a few years, but at least you're going to understand each other better, understand where your shared values are about the needs of infants, toddlers, children, families, so that you can work from a place of shared values. So after you translate the quote that's on your worksheet, and again, that's this one in the box on the right, do the translation based on how the person might be thinking about it in terms of needs and feelings. And then imagine, what if you had heard that instead? How would you feel differently and how would you reply? And then go back to the original quote and try that reply and see if it still works. So let's see, how much time can we take in groups? Oh, we've got plenty of time. Let's take 10 minutes in groups so that you can play with us a little bit, and then we'll come back. Don't forget your screenshot.
I think almost everyone is back. I'm going to give it another second. Okay. How was that for everyone? Once translating that quote, what feelings did you experience? What came up for you? Feel free again to come off mute, raise your hand, and drop your thoughts, feelings, or questions in the chat. I know we had a good question right before we came back to the larger group as well.
I'll jump in. Our group said, noted, or I noted, but I think the group agreed that it somehow depends on the intonation and the facial expression and everything that goes with it. It's not just the words, it's how those words were delivered. And you could deliver them in a really sincere way and have a bridge there, or they could be delivered in a kind of offhand way that's obvious that person doesn't want to have a further conversation. So that it's critically important. It's just can't be the words, it's got to be the intonation as well.
I love that. That was well said, Libby. Nick, I saw you came off mute right before Libby. Not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah, this is a good time to share that question.
Okay.
Yeah, one question I had was when it comes to the archetypes that we might have better relationships with, it's like whether it be economic influenced or legacy Republicans, at least in my mind, those two archetypes make a lot of sense to me, and it's easy to have a better relationship with them because it's clear that they care in some sense, and it's easy to ask questions of them. So I'm curious to know what folks think about how we can use them to pull on the strings of other archetypes that might be viewed as more difficult. So whether it be populist aligned or even church and country, which I kind of see intertwined through many of them. But especially if they're colleagues in a legislature, how best can we encourage or enable legacy Republicans, for example, to work on those more difficult conservative archetypes?
I'd love to hear what folks in the room are thinking. You all tend to be the experts on this stuff, but one of the things I wonder about is, and I'll say to you what I said to my group, try to not go there quite yet. Just keep thinking about listening, right? So if you're in the conversation with economic influence or legacy, if you feel like you have more of a connection, this makes more sense to you, listen to the feelings and values that are driving the conversations that you're having with them. And you may have a close enough relationship where you could say, I'm really trying to understand Senator whoever over here. When you talk to them, like, are there shared values that you find yourself leaning into, or around this issue that you and I agree on? Do you feel like there's a connection point over there? I mean, they overtly might be able to help you. But I think even as you're developing relationships with people who are conservative decision makers, even if they're in different archetypes, they're going to have some shared values. And the more you can hear that in the conversations where you feel safe, the more you can try to lean on some of those shared values in some of the other conversations.
A thought that just came to me as you spoke is the importance of listening. I've been going to a lot of meetings with a lot of legislators, both in the state capitol and in neighborhood meetings. And a lot of times when I go, I only have a vague idea of what I might say. And I just sit there and listen and listen and listen and listen. And when I listen long enough, then I come up with something that I think is useful to say. And my experience has been when I do that, at the last 2 or 3 meetings I've been to, when I do that, when the break comes, then people come up to me and want to talk about what I said. And I think that's because I listened and I didn't go in knowing what I wanted to say.
Thank you for sharing that, Thomas. I think we can all learn more from listening a little bit more. I know my husband feels that way about me. This is great conversation, and I do want to advance this along for the sake of our time, but please keep chatting in the chat. I am loving the energy and the conversation that is happening. So what's going to happen is we are going to go into the final step into the Hidden Feelings work, the role play. Since Anasuya Starberg couldn't join us today, she and Kristen Compton from Voices for Healthy Kids. Hi, Kristen. Recorded a live role play. Some of you might have already watched it if you were able to review the module. This is not a rehearsed or polished thing. It was organic. It's just the idea is to show you how this looks. So you are set up to try it with your team. Anasuya asked Kristen to name a situation where she's worked through something controversial with a decision maker. And she chose a time when she was working on a breastfeeding bill. And decision makers were opposing it, saying it was an excuse to allow for indecent exposure in public. As she described that experience, Anasuya asked her to describe the feelings she experienced in her body, which was tightness in her chest, and her emotions, which were anger and also being caught off guard. Anasuya explained that by being there for Kristen, just as you would be there for another colleague, this is the start of feeling trust, and safety. So what we're going to do is watch that next piece of the work together. You might want to have your feelings and needs list handy so you can think about what you're hearing from Kristen.
Step is to go with what's happening in your awareness, in your own system, your own nervous system. And go with that and see if you can make sense of it with your head and put it into, you feel this because you need that. Let's start there with the feelings and needs.
Yeah, so I think initially that feeling is defensiveness and wanting to get my point across because I need the decision maker's support for moving along this piece of legislation, and I have a need to want he or she to understand why this matters and why this is important for children.
So yeah, I think their needs were really clear. You need support and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go back to the feelings again, because you did something that we all do. And this training is about teaching us to do something a little different. What we've all been taught to do with the way we use language and the way we think is to go to a strategy rather than a feeling. And a strategy is like what you want to have happen instead, or the way you don't like the way it went, right? And so we're going to tune into the feelings. And this is where the list of feeling words comes in really handy. I encourage everybody to refer to that. I call them the cheat sheets. But we don't have that in front of you right now. So I'm going to help you. Just tune in again. I know physically what you were feeling is something in your heart. And when you pay attention to that for a moment, see if there's any emotions that go with it.
Yeah, so I would say probably anxious and scared that if he or she doesn't give the support, let's assume that he or she was a committee head or something, without he or she's support, we can't move forward, right?
Yeah.
So that feeling of scared, maybe even hopelessness if he or she is a hard no, and creates a lot of pushback from others.
Yeah, that's clear. And those words are on the list. Congratulations. So I've been doing this literally for decades, and I just want to point out, because people can't see, but I actually wrote down those words to track them so I don't forget. So I encourage you, if you're working on this yourself, you also write down for yourself. If you're working with someone else, you write down for them. And so the feeling words were you feel scared and anxious and even hopeless, and you need support and understanding. And you're nodding, that feels right.
And I would even say maybe another one would be attacked.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another thing we do with language, right? That this feeling attacked is actually not a feeling. We feel a certain way if we think we're being attacked.
Yes,
Yeah.
defensive from feeling attacked.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is all this kind of awareness, and continually distilling it down to the core feelings and core needs underneath the strategy. Because I'm feeling attacked is actually the strategy you think the other person has. You think and they may very well be. Doesn't mean you're wrong, but
Right.
it's in the head, and we're trying to go to the heart, which is the feelings, and to the gut, which is the needs. Because if we stay on that place where we think, we easily go into them and us. And what we're doing is we're introducing tools here to depolarize the language.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong or inaccurate about what's going on in here. It's just that that's what we've been doing and it doesn't work. So then we're going to a new place, new set of tools.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to say back to you the feelings and needs, and I want you to just notice what happens in your body when you hear them.
Okay.
So it sounds like when this person said that thing to you about women just wanting to expose themselves in public, even now when you think back on it, you feel scared and anxious and even hopeless. And what you need is support and understanding.
Yes.
And how does that feel to hear that?
It's reassuring to hear it in that frame, even several years later, to be able to have that perspective and realize the importance of unpacking these situations when they occur, and taking the time to digest that so we can move forward through the difficulty or controversy or barriers.
Yeah. And this is something when we do for each other, even when we do for ourselves, it's a form of empathy and self-care. It allows us to go deeper than that hamster wheel of what hurt us, what hurts in the world, where we get stuck, where the roadblocks are. It helps us go beneath that to our common humanity. And everybody, even the person who said that to you, knows what it's like to be scared, anxious, or hopeless. And even that person has needed support and understanding. And so this is the common humanity bridge. And now I want to see if, now that you're more in touch with your feelings and those needs, and you think about this exchange you had and how you felt then or how you feel now, either one might be the same or different. What do you think your values are that I'm guessing felt under attack, or that you weren't feeling support or understanding for?
I think I think what I felt was under attack was probably at the core, aside from me being there as an advocate in that situation, because I had that firsthand personal experience of being a nursing mom. I think I felt attacked for my choices, and I was obviously trying to advocate for other moms that I understood needed this support and wanted this protection. And I think it felt like an attack of our choices and our values and how we wanted to care for our children.
Yes. And so the value of being a mother, being a parent, the value of caring for our children and doing what we think is right for our child.
Right.
And ironically, that value is probably held on the other side in this case.
Sure.
We had really different strategies around it. And so there are ways that we show in the guide. Once you get to this understanding, that is the bridge. And then we show you where to go from there. But thank you so much for doing this today.
You're welcome.
I know we are again pressing up on time. Jen, I'm wondering if you want to play video 2 and we discuss them all at one time, and folks can right now, so you might not lose your train of thought. Drop in the chat or write, what did you notice? What came up for you? What questions do you have? I see someone thought it was fantastic. We love to hear that. And I do want to do a mention that in an ideal world, if this was a longer session, we would actually be doing the role plays with each of you all. But we thought this model would solve for the shorter time that we had together as well. Logan, nice to see you again, Logan, and I'm happy to hear that it is so good to you.
I just wanted to expound on what I said. This is Katie. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, the idea of the psychology behind like what we do and what, we're all, I think all of us here can agree, like we do the work we do because we, have values and passion for what we're working on and what we want to see in this world. And I think sometimes it can get very frustrating when somebody is not seeing the world as you do, and it can maybe sometimes really impact the way that you're talking with them. So I think this is a really, really important thing to talk about.
Yeah, it's nice to have something to come back to recenter yourself in it's kind of a North Star of sorts, something to always come back to. I did too. I use that in my personal life too, Sharita, yeah, of address her personal feelings and the attacked feelings that you feel sometimes. Yep. Jen, you want to go ahead into the next role play?
Yep. Thanks, Deb. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate Christine. I know how painful it is to watch yourself on video. So thank you, Christine, for being willing to do this. And I'm just struck every time we do this by how, even if you're kind of like, this is weird, this feeling stuff, this is therapy, I just want to put my feelings away and do the work. Like taking the time to be heard and supported or offering this to a colleague is really powerful. So let's watch how Christine and Anasuya continue the conversation. And you can think about how you can take this into your own life or how you could even do a role play with somebody on your team or your coalition.
So we've gotten to the place where you got in touch with giving words to your feelings, your needs, and your core values. And then this amazing insight that the person who made that statement that was so hurtful and felt like an attack probably has the same core value activated for them. Knowing this, does it help you to go forward and read into or guess into that person's feelings and needs?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, trying to understand that they too are coming from a place of wanting what's best for children and protecting and caring for children. We just had different ideas about how to do it. And part of that is the age of the child and the stage of development and so forth. So trying to figure out where that crossover or commonality area is.
Yeah. And do you have any idea? I mean, this is totally off the cuff, but do you have any idea, like, if I was that person who had just said that, and having the awareness you have now, what you might say to them? Do you want to just give that a try?
Yeah, I think I would, you know, the hindsight of 2020, right? I think I would respond with something like, I understand your concerns for protecting children, but we as mothers who are choosing to breastfeed our children also want to care and protect our children. And doing this when the child is hungry, whether we're in public or not, is really important. And I hope that we can continue further dialogue about this and find areas where we can agree.
Yes. And my only advice in that would be to leave out the strategy. Do you know what part of that was the strategy?
Reconvening or revisiting the conversation.
That you want to breastfeed in public, right? Because you know that you disagree on that. So right now you're building the bridge of common ground. So I would suggest saying everything you said, but leaving that part for later. Doesn't mean you're not going to put that in, right? But
No, that's a fair point. Yep.
And so what we're going for is the common humanity. Where is the common ground? And
Yes.
once you've built a little bit of trust in each other, then you can say, let's talk again about our strategy for meeting the needs of young children and their mothers. You know, no polarizing views are brought in yet. That's when we get to the negotiation. Right now, we're building understanding and support so that both people can feel a little more understood and a little more supported. And I'm really, really so grateful that you did all this and brought all these in. You have so much awareness and so much experience as an advocate. And we are all programmed to use language in ways of jumping to the strategy and trying to get agreement on the strategy. And when things are this polarized, it seems like we're coming from two different worlds, and that just isn't going to work. And what we want to do is keep that door from being closed. We want to get in the door.
Yes.
Do you have any questions or anything to say?
No, now I'm just running back through all the other many conversations I've had about many other subjects that I should have left that piece out of. So thank you for that insight.
Well, yeah, and the guide really walks everybody through this, and it's so wonderful when you have people to practice with. It's different every time, and you learn more about yourself and guess into more about the other person every time, and then you'll be able to use that, you know, when you're really in those conversations, you build this muscle. Thank you for doing it with me today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Again, giant thanks to Christine. You're getting props in the chat. I'd love to hear what came up with you, what you're thinking about. I also wanted to just answer a couple things. I was looking at the chat and someone asked about the interplay of valuing freedom and control. Those could be at odds depending on how you define those. And that's one thing I'll say about all of these archetypes and really life. People hold conflicting values. Right? Like I'm working on another research project where we're finding people think just working hard is how you get ahead. People just need to work harder. And they also acknowledge that there are structural barriers based on structural racism. Like those things to me don't compute, but that's my brain. That's not the other person's brain who holds those two values that feel conflicting to me. So if I value freedom, that could be that part of my having freedom is my having control over my own circumstances, right? That's one way I could imagine those going together. But that's something to ask about. Wow, I hear you're really valuing freedom. And I also hear that you're valuing control. Am I reading that right? Tell me more about that. Someone else said, how do you find the American dream? Well, in this research, when we use the word American dream, we use that to mean the ability to create the life that you want and have set your children and people coming after you up for a better life than you have. That's the kind of general understanding we were using. But again, if somebody says American dream to you, that's a perfect question. Wow, how do you define American dream? Like, I'd love to just understand. I'm so curious. So when those questions come up, ask them. They're great conversation openers. Any other questions or things coming up for you before we close out? All right, Joshua, over to you. And if you are thinking of any more questions as Joshua closes us out, please put them in the chat.
That pesky mute button. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed today. Thank you so much to the Metropolitan Group and team. And thank you to all of you who've joined us and stuck around through this training. We want you to please take what you've learned into your organizations and coalitions and reach out if you'd like support from our team. You can email us at voicesforhealthykids@heart.org. With your questions or suggestions. We want this to continue to be an ongoing dialogue. We're constantly learning and evaluating to see how this can best be applied to the work that you're doing. You'll also see the link for to request technical assistance or inquire about joining a community of practice. That'll be posted in the chat just a second here. And please also fill out the short survey that will be emailed to you or even better, we'll drop it in the chat box for you to click out. To click the link, please take a moment to complete that short survey. We take your feedback very, very seriously, and it helps us to get better. It helps us to make sure that these trainings are better, that these trainings will assist you in the best way possible for the work that you're doing. If you found this helpful, please encourage others to explore this resource. There's a 30-minute overview as well as the full modules in the online guide. People can take what they need or just send them to our website. Thanks again. And you guys have a great afternoon. We really appreciate you for joining us today.